It's really a pleasure for us to be here with you this morning in your beautiful church on such a beautiful day. As Pastor mentioned, it came as a surprise to John and I that we were back out on the road together after 20 years of serving together in Petra. And it came as a result of somebody asking me if I wanted to come lead worship, and I told them that I don't do that alone, and I said I'm not coming unless John comes. And they said, well, we're really going to have to pray about that.
No, they didn't. No, they said, oh my gosh, we get John?
And so they said it was okay as long as it didn't cost any more. And so we decided to do this together, and so we started working on some praise and worship songs, which was a little bit different for us because we had to change some keys around so that John could sing them and sound good. And we managed to do that, and we started thinking, well, if we're going to go to all this trouble, we might as well do an album together of this.
Actually, CD.
Well, album is okay. No, see,
Is
it's
that
record. That's what you're not supposed to say anymore.
Okay.
See, we're of the generation where now for those young people that are here today, a record was a round plastic,
Great big CD.
See,
Great
and
big
we,
CD.
and we sometimes forget and still say record. See,
That's because we're 110 years old.
we always get corrected by young people when we say record. Record. It's an album, and we did one. We made one. That's right, and it's called Vertical Expressions. And many of I guess all of the praise and worship songs that we've sung today are on that album. But to give you a little history, back when I was 13 years old, I started playing guitar, and I thought it would be really neat to play some of the songs that my older brother was bringing home on records. There's a reference again to the round plastic things. And so I started to learn how to play guitar. And after a while, I got into a group. And I thought it was really neat that I could play guitar. I really enjoyed it. I loved it, especially playing in front of people. In fact, I felt so good about it that I wanted to thank somebody because I knew that not everybody could do that. And so I used to thank God. And this is really before I came to know Christ. I didn't know who else to thank. I knew that it had to come from someplace, and not everyone could play guitar. And I enjoyed it so much, so I thanked God. And later on, I did come to know Jesus Christ. I was going to a college in Ohio called Kent State University. Some of you might have heard of that. And yes, it was on May 4th, 1970, when 4 students were shot dead. Several others were wounded by the National Guard, called out because of a Vietnam demonstration on campus. And that had a profound effect on me. I remember thinking, how in the world can this be happening in our world where students are shot down? And what is going on? And I began to really question some of the traditional values. And I came to a place where I thought, if there is a God, I think I better find out right away because I'm about ready to go the other way. And it was right about that time when I remember seeing a Time magazine that had a cover. It was a psychedelic picture of Jesus on the front cover of Time magazine. And I remember thinking, I wonder what this is. And I looked inside, and there were pictures in there of Chuck Smith, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California, baptizing these long-haired hippie freaks in the ocean. And I thought, well, that is really amazing. Why are all those people getting into that if there's not something there? And that was a seed. And then the next thing that happened was an old friend of mine who had grown up with, who'd moved away to California, came back that summer to visit, and he was definitely changed. It was obvious that there was something different about him. And in fact, I asked him to tell me what it was. And he said, I've been saved. I've been born again. And even though I'd gone to church all the way through my high school, I'd never heard those terms. I didn't know what they meant. And so I had him explain more. And he told me that God was real, that God could be real to you every day, that he could be a part of your life, that God has a plan for our lives, that we're not just here by accident. And then he said, I've planted the seed in you and I hope it'll grow. And then he left. I don't know why he didn't ask me to pray and invite Christ into my life, but I know for the next 2 weeks all I could think about is there really a God? Is he really here? Does he know me? Does he want something from me? Does he hear me when I pray? And I would wake up every day and I would look up in the beautiful sky and I'd think, did God really make this world that I live in? And after about 2 weeks, I was sitting alone on a couch in the living room, and I felt an incredible presence in the room with me. And I thought I could just reach out. It had to be God. And I didn't know how to pray or what to pray, but I just said, God, if you're there, if you're real, I want you in my life. And right that moment, I knew that something changed and something happened. And I knew that God had heard me pray. I went back to college. I went back to Kent State University, and it was a very hard semester, actually a quarter, after the shootings. There was a lot of tension on campus, and I ran into several problems at school that I needed to pray about. And this was a new experience for me to pray and see if, about little things, what I figured wasn't of any huge consequence, and yet I kept seeing all of these things that I was praying about coming true. God was answering my prayers. And at first I thought, well, maybe this is just a coincidence, that I prayed about this and then God answered. But I thought, I'm going to just keep this as just to remember that I prayed and that God answered this. And pretty soon there were so many things that I had prayed about that God had answered that I knew, because I was a smart college student, and I knew about things like the laws of probability, that there was no way in the world by chance that all of these things could happen. And indeed there was a God, and he did hear my prayers, and he was leading my life, and my faith began to grow. And as my faith grew a little more, after I got out of college, I realized that I needed a little bit more of God and of his word. So I went to Bible school, a 2-year Bible school in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that was based out of a church. And the last thing I wanted to do after being a poor college student was be a poor Bible college student. But nonetheless, that's what God told me to do. And so I did. And it was a sacrifice because I lived on $15 a week. And even though that was a long time ago, it still wasn't very much money. I don't know how to this day that I got through that. But God was faithful every step of the way, met every one of my needs. And at that Bible school, there were 3 other students who played music. And we decided to get together to see if God might have a ministry for us. Little did I know that that ministry would become Petra and would become my life's work. I've been in, or was in, the band Petra over half of my life. And I thank God for every moment of it. We got to travel all over the world. We got to give our testimonies in front of millions of people. And we got to see miraculous things happen continually, all the time. And it's been a fantastic life. And now for God to give John and I a chance to come out and still say hello to people like you and fellowship, be here with you this morning, that's just an extra blessing. It's just a icing on the cake of what God has already done. And I just want to say thank you, God, this morning.